What is going on, everybody? You got Matty Brolick here, back for the PPL Season 4 Week 2 Power Rankings, and I am not alone. I am joined with the person that I admire, the person that completes me, and just someone that I wouldn't rather do the Power Rankings with anybody else, and his name is Styx.
Oh, is it? Wait, shit, I thought I was Jolt.
No, thank God.
Yeah, I know, that ginger is way too, ginger to do anything competent at all. But hey, what's up, guys? This is Styx again, and I am Maddie's other half. I wouldn't say better looking, because let's be real, he is a 13 out of 10. I mean, like, whew, I got to look at those abs yesterday, and like I'm still just blushing. But yeah, we have the power rankings in what was probably one of the hacksiest weeks I have really ever seen in any draft league. One of the hacksiest weeks I have really ever seen in any draft league.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, making these rankings were definitely difficult this week, guys, so try not to take certain things too personally. If you may be lower than you think you should be, or if you're surprised that maybe you're higher than you expected, it was tough because, you know, a lot of people played well. Even the people that were winning due to hacks, they played well. It's not like we could fault them for getting lucky, but at the same time, you know, we feel badly for their opponents who got hacked and kind of just didn't deserve to lose the way they did. So that's why it was definitely confusing for us this week. So until the weeks go by and more decisive wins happen, it's hard for us to get more accurate rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I actually felt bad in a lot of my rankings, and in my justifications, I wanted to say I'm sorry in almost every single one of them, because anybody that lost, I mean, in one way or another, they didn't necessarily deserve to lose, and anybody that won, they almost didn't necessarily deserve to win. So I mean, it was just kind of I really just kind of want to be like, you know what, you're all number 1 and number 12, but I mean, this isn't the world we live in. You don't get participation ribbons for anything, so we had the difficult job of ranking you guys, and just know that this might be the power rankings, but it is not the rankings in our hearts.
Agreed. Yeah, that was a perfect way to put it. So to get this thing started, at number 12, I have the West Chan United. Now, you know, this, like, they were all tough, but, you know, he is still winless. He did get hacked, I believe, against Shoddy. I mean, I'm not sure if, I'm not exactly sure if, because I didn't see his side of the battle, I saw Shoddy's side of the battle, so when he could have potentially baton passed some boosts into a Curum Black, I think that, you know, with his Scolipede, I think that could have been game right there. I'm not sure if he definitely had a baton pass, or if that was his game plan, if that's what he was going to do. But in Shoddy's commentary, he did say, like, if he did pass right there, I probably wouldn't have been able to stop him right there. So if that was his game plan, then that was very unfortunate for him, because maybe he would have gotten a win right then and there. But we don't know exactly what his game plan was, so we don't know if the hacks mattered necessarily. So that is why I felt, you know, him being winless at all, I would just put him at number 12.
Yeah, see, I had him actually at number 11, which was where I had him last week. And West Chan was really not able to make it out of the cellar this week while facing off against another, well, quote-unquote bottom team. But I mean, Shoddy is never a bottom-tier battler. It just so happened that that's where his team was this week. And speaking of that Scolipede play, yes, that was very, very unfortunate. I mean, there's no two ways about that. I mean, it sucked that he did get parried, but I actually thought that he kind of got a little greedy right there. Instead of just passing the +1 to Curum, he decided to go for a +2, and I mean, not even necessarily like a +2 with a protect or a sub. He went for a +2 while going for an attack, and that told me that he probably should have just gone for baton pass at the +1 to Curum to go ahead and punch a hole in Bayern Munich's team instead of actually going for game. And even if it had passed the +1, I still think that that would have put Shoddy on the back foot, and so instead of West Chan being on the back foot, Shoddy would have been. So, I mean, the match was only 2-0, and while the crit sucks, I do think the greediness was a little bit determining of the game, which ultimately costed Liam. Instead of West Chan being on the back foot, Shoddy would have been. So, I mean, the match was only 2-0, and while the crit sucks, I do think the greediness was a little bit determining of the game, which ultimately costed Liam.
Yeah, that's a great point, because it ended up being a 2-0. It wasn't even like a big differential, wasn't a big deficit there. So had he not gotten a little greedy there and gone for an attack, then if he could have put a lot of pressure on Shoddy, then maybe Shoddy wouldn't have been able to hold on and get that 2-0, because that killed all of his momentum when he lost the Scolipede there. So that was a very, very good point, Sticks, and I would expect nothing less from a man of your astounding intelligence. So moving on to number 11 for me, I put the Parasect Germain. Now, I just feel so bad for this guy. Because he's winless, I couldn't put him higher. I felt like I wanted to put him a little higher because he has played really well in both of his games so far. I do not love his team. It's definitely one of the teams that I put lower in the initial Week 0 power rankings, but he has shown me that he's comfortable with these Pokemon. He preps well, and he plays well. It seems like he really just has his finger on the pulse, like he knows what he's doing. He keeps himself in the matches until he gets, murderously haxed, and that was so unfortunate this week, because last week he got haxed and swept by a Manaphy. We don't know how that game would have played out because it was still early in the match, but this one seems like he probably would have won had he not gotten hacked multiple times throughout the match. So my condolences go to him, because hopefully he doesn't just lose all of his confidence and get upset and lose the will to play, because I've been there before. It sucks, and with the way he's playing, he does have potential to do well. So hopefully he can keep his head up for the rest of the season.
Shroom, I love you, but things just really weren't going for you at all this week, or last week for that matter. I mean, you did face the scariest draft that I've ever seen, but a 4-0 loss is still, unfortunately, a 4-0 loss despite all the body slam paras, full paras, and then the crit by the Mega Scizor on the Mega Venusaur, which, I mean, almost kind of, sort of, completely won the game for UTR at that point. So, I mean, it sucks a lot that he got hacked 2 weeks in a row, and I feel bad, but unfortunately, I really just had to base position on losses and differential at that point. I mean, I know that there's a lot more between the lines than what is in the standings, but with so many ridiculously haxy matches this week, and actually not only in the PPL, but kind of all over, it was really, really weird. I think overall this was an incredibly haxy week in all draft leagues, and this type of hacks is exactly the reason that I have not played Mons since, well, what was that? I think October or November or something like that. So I'm going on a full year, which kind of begs the question why they keep having me be an analyst for this type of stuff, considering I only play the trading card game. But hey, I'm just going to roll with it. They haven't figured it out yet. And I'm just going to take the spots and be like, haha, they don't know it. And I'm not apparently that unknowledgeable. Although they might just have me be the pinky to Maddie's brain. Props if you guys get the reference game. But hey, I'm just going to roll with it. They haven't figured it out yet. And I'm just going to take the spots and be like, haha, they don't know it. And I'm not apparently that unknowledgeable. Although they might just have me be the pinky to Maddie's brain. Props if you guys get the reference. Props if you guys get the reference.
That was awesome. This is why you can't keep Sticks away from an analyst position, because regardless of how much he plays or not, he's just the man, and that is how I fell in love with him. So number 10 for me, I put
we met on the beach and he just flexed, and
that's
that
right.
was it.
That was always my game plan. I mean, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but with Sticks, it got him right away, and I'm glad it did, because as you can see, he is a hot commodity. So moving on to number 10, guys, we have the Norwick Skitty, coached by Don Fanatic. Now, the Will-O-Wisp miss on the Primeape did matter, definitely, because the Primeape went in and got 3 kills, but he still got 5-0'd, and out of all the teams, his is my least favorite. I know Stick said that that's a team that he thinks is just loaded with underappreciated Pokemon that can be really good, and while I do agree with that, I still feel that it is lacking a bit of firepower, that it needs to be a top team, and last week he did have a bit of a haxy win, whereas this week, although he did get a little bit haxed, he still kind of got crushed. So because of that, I ended up putting him at number 10. But, the hacks did matter. So maybe, if he gets some hacks in his favor or just more of a clean game, he'll do a little bit better in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I actually had Norwich Skitty at number 9 this week, and usually I don't like to drop somebody more than 2 spots after a loss or after a win, but really Norwich just had a very uneasy week 1, and getting 5-0 does not lend itself to anything particularly good, and normally I would put them at number 8, but Eterna City had just defeated them this week, so it was only right for them to be ranked below, and spoilers, I have Eterna City at 8. And I know the first turn Willow sucked, which put him on the back foot for the rest of the game, but I do think he did misplay in letting the Gallade take a ton of damage immediately, which, in my opinion, ultimately cost him the game. But really, he just had no speed control at all, and in my opinion, it was just kind of a poor play all around the Scarf Primate, but when he did have an Aromatisse to take it on, so, I mean, I think it was a little bit of over-predictions, which he had to make after the Gallade misplay. In my opinion, it might not have been from a different perspective and if things had gone differently, but in my opinion, it was a misplay. And I mean, while I do love the team, like Maddie said, there is something to be said for underappreciated Pokemon. I mean, there is a reason that they are underappreciated, is because there are oftentimes just a lot more powerful counterparts to them. And so, I mean, while I do like that team and I think the Pokemons are underappreciated, Maddie was 100% right. It does lack the firepower to just be able to just run through teams like other teams have. So unfortunately, Norwich is at number 9 in my power rankings this week. I mean, while I do like that team and I think the Pokemons are underappreciated, Maddie was 100% right. It does lack the firepower to just be able to just run through teams like other teams have. So unfortunately, Norwich is at number 9 in my power rankings this week.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. It's playing around the Primate, especially keeping like the Heliolisk in, some of those things just they were over predictions, and I don't think they were completely necessary. But since he was kind of on the ropes there, I guess some big plays may have been needed to get himself really back into the game. But regardless, it's all logistics now. A 5-0 is a 5-0, and that really hurts his differential. So now moving on to number 9 for me, I put the Pittsburgh Pyroar coached by Slyro. Now, the reason I put him this low is because I didn't really like his prep that much for the battle. It seemed like he didn't have much for the Manaphy at all. Like, the Manaphy just set up a normal tail glow, and that's what Manaphy basically does. I know there were screens up, but they were kind of on the tail end when the Manaphy did set up the tail glow, no pun intended. And it just seemed like the Pyroar did not have anything to counter the Manaphy at that point. It was like all he needed to do was try to get some damage on it and potentially put it in range of Scarf Togekiss, which he just barely was able to accomplish. And I think that he did play the end game well, but there were a few plays that were kind of questionable here and there. For example, like switching in the Togekiss on the Crocodile, potentially risking a Stone Edge or something like that, which would have definitely lost him the game had he did go for Stone Edge and end up connecting there. So I think that their prep wasn't that great. I'm not a huge fan of their team in the first place. Like every time I look at it at team preview, I think it's a Trick Room team, and they just barely came out with the win. So a win is a win, and that is great. So maybe they'll be able to continue that momentum and prove me wrong. But because it was so close, and I just really didn't feel like their prep was fantastic. Like there wasn't really much that said, "Wow, that was." Really good prep on their part, and just to be so weak to something like Manaphy, just a standard Manaphy set, I don't know. I just feel like, even though Manaphy's hard to prepare for, you have a whole team that could kind of be designed to try to check it a little bit better. So I don't know. That's just my opinion, and that's why I have him at number 9.
Yeah, I mean, I actually completely agree on the Manaphy point, and going to that Crocodile switch in that you said, I mean, it wouldn't even have needed to be a Stone Edge. Just something as simple as a knockoff, which is probably the most spammed move apart from Scald in the entire game, would have sealed the game for the Pittsburgh Pyroar. But alas, I do have Pittsburgh at number 10, and as much as I would like to move them up after a win, with all the jumping around I had teams doing this week, I really couldn't justify dropping a team more than a couple spots just for Pittsburgh to move up. And if they had won very impressively, then yes, I would have moved them up. But unfortunately, it was probably, I mean, that's the definition of an ugly win right there. So I would like to acknowledge the win and congratulate Sly on the win. And I mean, relatively apologize for not moving him up. But I would like to point out, yes, he did have a huge weakness to Manaphy, but which kind of is indicative of the prep or kind of lack thereof in terms of that. But given the team that he did bring to the battle, he did everything he needed to wear down the Manaphy and come away with Togekiss doing a cleanup with a Scarf at the end of the game. So way to go on that. I mean, not many people can say that they took on a Manaphy behind screens at +3 and lived to tell about it. So way to go. Unfortunately, I could not move you up out of the 10 spot this week. Scarf at the end of the game, so way to go on that. I mean, not many people can say that they took on a Manaphy behind screens at +3 and lived to tell about it. So way to go. Unfortunately, I could not move you up out of the 10 spot this week.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, he played the end game very well, and that is huge. That's something that will carry you a long way throughout the course of the season if you could prep and play well, at other parts of the match. But
yeah, Maddie, I would like to just point out really quickly that while Sly did have a very, very great endgame, one person we know who just is absolutely horrible at the endgame?
Who's
Jolt. I mean, he has the statistics in his favor going in to get a championship, and he still manages to lose it. So, I mean, chokes like that you just cannot come back from. So, Sly, don't pull a Jolt. That's
exactly.
All I'm
Sly's
saying.
already ahead of Jolt in that department, and probably a bunch of other departments too, because it's Jolt. But yeah, so with that being said, I'll move on to my number 8, which is the Birmingham Spritzy, coached by Onesie Bennett. Now, he also lost to some hacks this week. He ended up losing to, it was George, SceptileMC, coach of the San Francisco Arcaniners. Now, his team, I think, we discussed last week, is being kind of top-heavy, but it is a pretty good team overall. And now, what happened was George had set up a Shell Smash with his Crustle, and now I think it's awesome that Shell Smash Crustle is putting in work, but it was at 1 HP, down to its 30, and then the Onesie Bennett and his Birmingham Spritzy's Lickitung came in, and that was the only thing that could take a hit at that point from the Crustle, and it did get crit with the Stone Edge. So, as long as it did have an attacking move, which I would imagine it would have something to hit it, it would have been able to knock out the Crustle, guaranteed from the 1 HP. And then, it still would have been, it would have been a match that was kind of far from over, because I believe that the Spritzy still had 3 more of their most powerful Pokemon left, and the Lickitung still would have been alive, not at much HP, but it would have been alive. So he at least would have been able to get some initiative after the Lickitung went down or something like that. And it could have been a different game, just because, like I said, some of the superstars for the Spritzy were still alive, like the Megaladios, the Volcanion, and the Thundurus. But, that is all speculation. We don't know exactly how it would have played out. But I just think it was unfortunate, and I didn't want to put him too low. But, it is Stone Edge. So even though Stone Edge does miss a lot, it does have a high crit ratio. So it's not like he got completely robbed out of a game. And, so many things happened throughout the course of the match to make it unfair. So that's why I couldn't put him too high either.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have the Birmingham Spritzy at number 6 this week. I mean, that's still dropping, and they had a strong week 1, but week 2 really was not so much. And while I do give him props for effectively using the Lickitung as well as Subvolcanion also being quite effective, you might even say super effective. Okay, sorry, that was a horrible pun. Maddie, we need to cut that out because that was just absolutely awful. But anyway, I know you are. I mean, he does get very unlucky when the Lickitung got critted, but my big thing with that position is my big thing with that play is George actually made a misplay going into that, fearing Roar from the offensive Grand Bowl, which, I mean, is 100% something that you could worry about, but at the same time was probably him being a little paranoid. And honestly, Birmingham was just kind of in a spot to where he had no answers to the Crustle. I mean, had the Crustle went ahead and gotten 2 Shell Smashes under its belt, it would have just completely swept through the team. And I mean, that just goes to George not being paranoid at that point. But he did put himself in a position to where the Crustle was able to set up and potentially sweep his entire team. And luckily then unluckily, George got paranoid and then critted the Lickitung. So I mean, that really does suck, and I'm sorry that that happened. But the reason I am going to go ahead and kind of justify the win is that he put himself in a position to lose to the Crustal and didn't have anything for it at that point. So it's unfortunate, but I mean, it does happen. And then critted the Lickitung. So I mean, that really does suck, and I'm sorry that that happened. But the reason I am going to go ahead and kind of justify the win is that he put himself in a position to lose to the Crustal and didn't have anything for it at that point. So it's unfortunate, but I mean, it does happen.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Because, I would stand by George's play, considering that, regardless of the Gramble set, yes, Roar probably doesn't really fit on an offensive set, but Thunder Wave is always pretty good on Gramble. So, just for speed control and stuff like that. So, I think that George probably made the right play just because it was kind of early in the match. And if Crustal could just put in some work, that'd be nice. But, he did get the crit. And that did seal the game for the Spritzy. So, they ended up losing kind of based on that. But like you said, he definitely put himself in a position to lose to the Crustal. I don't know if he had Thunder Wave or Roar on the Gramble. I don't think he did. So, had he gone for another Shell Smash, it was game. So that's a very good point, and I think that even justifies more why he should be at number 8 this week, not too high. So moving on to my number 7 here, I have the Thunderbolt and Wanderers coached by Paulie Mack. Now, maybe I should have him a little higher. I don't know. This one was tough just because, his week 1, he won 5-0, but it was like, the win wasn't necessarily based off of a crit, but, the way he won, and by the amount of differential he won by was solely based off a crit. And, that wasn't too convincing to me on how well he was actually going to do in that match. And then this one, I felt like he had the matchup. I didn't feel like, how I said before, I didn't think that the Pyro's prep was that great. And I think that since they were so weak to the Manaphy, had he played maybe a little better in certain areas or just made a couple of different moves, had a little bit of a better game plan going into the match, maybe he could have pulled that one out, because clearly the Manaphy was a nightmare for the Pyro to handle, and that was just one Pokemon on his team when he still had other things that were big threats, like the Crocodile, like the Emboar, like the Zapdos, which he definitely misplayed his Zapdos a bit. So, yeah, he did get unfortunate with a Heat Wave miss, but a T-Tar came in, so yeah, that wasn't too much. That wasn't really too unfortunate, because unless he burned, it wouldn't have mattered much. So yeah, that's why I kept him there. But he's still higher than some of the others because his differential is still high. He only ended up losing a 1-0 this week, and he had a 5-0 last week. So he still has a 4-0 differential, or just a +4 differential with being a 1-1 team. So that is very good, and that is why I could potentially put him a little bit higher. But I just wanted to keep him here because I felt like both of those games were winnable games. The first one he did win, but it was Haxie, and then this one he ended up losing a match I thought that he probably should have won.
And I mean, really, it did. Yeah, you're 100% right there, and I mean, really, it did ultimately come down to a roll with the Emboar's Sucker Punch. But I do want to give credit where credit is due because of Manaphy getting set up perfectly with the screens, then Memento and stuff like that, and being a huge threat, and that he was able to identify it as a huge threat to Pittsburgh Pyroar. But unfortunately, I mean, that roll doesn't go his way, and I mean, it was just kind of, I mean, I say that all these matches are kind of ugly, but I mean, it was ugly. It came down to like Sandstorm just getting enough chip damage here and there to win the game. So I actually have Thunderbolton at number 4 because I had them so high last week, but I mean, I only dropped them one spot because it was still a relatively close game. With all that, like Maddie said, he still is 1-1 with +4, so gonna give credit to him right there. And I mean, it sucks, but it sucked for half the teams this week, and I actually think every single one of the teams that lost can credit it somewhat to Hacks at least 1 or 2 turns to him right there. And I mean, it sucks, but it sucked for half the teams this week, and I actually think every single one of the teams that lost can credit it somewhat to Hacks at least 1 or 2 turns.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think that maybe I should have put Paulie a little bit higher. I don't think I would have put him much higher than number 6, like maybe number 5 at the most, but I think around 6 or 7 is where he belongs in my opinion for now. So for number 6, I decided to put the Bayern Munich, coached by Shadi. Now this was, like we said before, a bit of a hacksy win, because if that Skolopede was able to baton pass into the Kieran Black, it could have been a different game, but he still played and prepped very well. And Shadi is one of those coaches who just has a ton of potential no matter what team he's using, and I do think his team is good. So he, with some momentum, can definitely put in the work and continuously move up this season. But we're gonna have to see, because this win wasn't the most convincing. Like I said before, I do think he played and prepped well, but he was in a position to definitely lose had that Skolopede had baton pass, or been able to baton pass and not gotten paralyzed, whatever the situation was. So definitely could have been another loss for him here. But I decided to just move him up a little bit, because last week he lost to Mono pretty handily, but I still felt like he prepped and played pretty well that game. Mono just really went crazy and played one of the best games I've ever seen him play. So I just feel like he hasn't done too much to go too low, and just knowing how good of a coach he is with how good of a team he has, I think this is a pretty decent spot for him at number 6.
I mean, I actually have him at number 7, and it was nice to see him be able to get back on track after a rough week 1. And I'm going to keep it short and sweet and just give him a little extra love because of that super sexy Nidoqueen set, which utilized Super Fang to get 2 knockouts this week and really set the tone for the rest of the match. I mean, yes, it was hacksy, but let's be real. Were any of the matches this entire week that convincing? I mean, all of them involved hacks, so there was no way to say, oh yeah, they definitely deserve the win. So, I mean, you know what? I'm rolling with it, and Shadi is at number 7 for me this week. But I'm rolling with it, and Shadi is at number 7 for me this week.
Yeah, totally. I definitely agree. And that Nidoqueen set was very nice. I didn't even know Nidoqueen got Super Fang. And I love using the Nidos in the format. So just goes to show, number 1, how good Shadi is, and number 2, how bad I am. So moving on to number 5, I put SceptileMC and his San Francisco Arcaniners. Now, he's got a high differential because of that big win. And he got hacked week 1. So this game, even though partially his win was due to hacks, at the same time, we don't know how it would have played out had he not gotten that crit. He still had a bunch of Pokemon left, and could have very well still won the game. But like Styx mentioned before, he did put himself in a position to win and sweep with the Crustle, considering that he could have potentially gone for another Shell Smash, and his Paranoia may have gotten to him, but he still put himself in a situation where Stone Edge has a high crit ratio, and it did do what Stone Edge does best, and no, that is not miss, it is crit. So he was able to win the game, to something that isn't so out of the ordinary. A Stone Edge crit, those things happen. So the fact that he got hacked last week, and the fact that he had a big high differential win this week, maybe want to put him up a little bit higher, because even though his team isn't my favorite, it is George. He is an incredible player in the format, and giving him this type of breathing room to be 1-1 and not 0-2, and also to have a pretty decent differential to work with, is definitely scary and threatening for the rest of the league.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and it was really nice to see that George was able to get back on track after a rough week 1, and I'm actually kind of kicking myself right now, because looking at my notes for the justification of putting San Francisco at the 5 slot, I'm realizing I talked over all of that when we went over the Birmingham Spritzy justification, so oops. And anything that I didn't say, you just went over right now about the putting himself in a position to win with Crustle, but being a little scaredy cat and not going for the second Shell Smash. So you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and chalk that up to me being incompetent and George just being a sexy man overall. I'm just going to go ahead and chalk that up to me being incompetent and George just being a sexy man overall.
There we go. That's the Sticks I like to hear from. So now moving on to the top 4, guys. This one may seem, I guess, a little odd, because I know Styx didn't put him nearly as high as I did. I actually put Necrostevo and the Eterna City Enders here at number 4. Now, I loved the team that he used against the Don Fanatic. He won, with a huge differential, a 5-0 win over the Birmingham Spritzy, and the way he utilized Primate was definitely awesome. I think his team build, like his the specialty attacking Garchomp, speed creeping the Glade and such, was really cool. He put in the work, and And yeah, I think that he definitely showed an impressive win this week. His team is one of my favorites in the whole league. It's very offensive. I know Sticks likes it too. And yeah, I'm just pulling for the guy to keep playing like that because he played well. He showed how dangerous his Volt Turn momentum could be with the Primeape and the Magneton. And yeah, he showed the power of his team. Something like a Scarf Primeape really having great coverage for his opponent and just wearing down everything while he had Pokemon like Mega Blastoise and Garchomp utilizing even its lower special attack stat, but good move pool to just break holes in his opponent's team. So huge shout out to him for playing a really good game this week. And yeah, just having a really cool team that I think has a good amount of potential. Maybe I did put him a little too high this week, considering I had him a lot lower last week, so he definitely moved up a lot. But I don't know. I was definitely just feeling it this week. And he's got a pretty good differential to work with as well, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that our difference in spots for ranking the Eterna City just comes down to a difference in mentality when it comes to power rankings. I mean, knowing you, I mean, just how, just kind of free-spirited you are. You kind of go with whatever you're feeling based on what you see that week and really what they've shown you that season and how you feel. I take more of a, I guess, business-like approach to the power rankings, and it's a lot more like the NCAA rankings to me, in which I have a starting ranking, which can be like the preseason rankings for like NCAA men basketball and football or something like that. And then as the season goes, like, a team does not jump a ridiculous amount from one week to another. So, I mean, while Necrostevo definitely was very, very impressive this week, I only moved him up a couple spots, but that's just my mentality towards power rankings. I think that you slowly move up throughout the season, and where your spot at the end of the season is just a body of work for what you've put together the entire time. So, I mean, Necrostevo, do not take the number 8 spot as an insult. I mean, I was so impressed this week. I mean, and I want to give you credit in particular for Garchomp, because literally every single move on that thing put in work. I mean, Earthquake essentially knocked out the Arcanine. Stealth Rock, I mean, is Stealth Rock. I really don't need to justify why that thing's very effective. And Fire Blast and Draco Meteor put in huge damage on the Skarm and Mega Gallade respectively to put him in a position to just take home the game very convincingly. I mean, albeit it was with a Will-O-Wisp from the Arcanine onto the Garchomp, so that kind of sucked and put them back a little bit. But Necrostevo, great work. I'm very, very impressed this week. And I mean, you're at number 8, but I really see you jumping up higher, so keep up the good work. I love Volt Turn. That is my favorite strategy. And also, you're using offensive Garchomp instead of Tank Chomp, so I mean, you got a little extra brownie points for me right there. The Arcanine onto the Garchomp, so that kind of sucked and put them back a little bit. But Necrostevo, great work. I'm very, very impressed this week. And I mean, you're at number 8, but I really see you jumping up higher, so keep up the good work. I love Volt Turn. That is my favorite strategy. And also, you're using offensive Garchomp instead of Tank Chomp, so I mean, you got a little extra brownie points for me right there. Extra brownie points for me right there.
I agree. And even the Rough Skin came into some nice play, like really weakening the Gallade, putting it in range of pretty much any attack. So, yeah, he was awesome to watch this week. And I think because it's early, if he keeps playing like that, his 4 spot could, either be justified or end up, he could be moving up even more. But if he does lose that momentum, then obviously he could be dropping down a little bit lower, because I know I did make him jump up quite high this week. But if he, like I said, if he plays like that, I think that he will be in good shape for the rest of the season. So for number 3, I put Monotui and the Tampa Bay Lux Rays. So Monotui was, in my opinion, after week 1, the guy to beat. I know it was only week 1, but his team is amazing, and he just played ridiculously. I mean, he made someone like Shoddy, who is just such a well-known and highly accomplished draft league player, look like, just some solid, player that's nothing so special. He really just came out there and outplayed him, outprepped him, and just looked so solid. He never lost control of that match. And this week, I think he prepped well, and he played fine. Like, I think that listening to his own justifications for his plays are plays that I probably would have made too for the most part, but he just ended up getting a lot of the 50-50s wrong. So in a sense, he was outplayed, and the hacks with the Talonflame on the Terrakion, considering the Terrakion missed the Stone Edge, which would have knocked out one of the biggest threats to his team really early. I think that was like turn 2, was extremely unfortunate for him, and it could have changed potentially the outcome of the game, but it definitely would have changed how close it was, because that Talonflame was just a huge nuisance, and it definitely gave Fufu some early momentum. So because of that, I still have Mono at number 3. He drops from number 1, but yeah, he continues to always play well. You know, his plays, they always make sense. It's not like you just see Mono come out there and really completely have a huge brain fart and make a gigantic misplay that just makes no sense and is just inconsistent. He always makes pretty consistent plays. The problem is maybe to his opponents that could become somewhat predictable. I don't know, because it seemed like Fufu really did have his number in the prediction game this week. But yeah, still played well, prepped well, and has a great team.
Good lord, Maddie, it sounds like you have more of a boner for Mono than you do for me, which I'm actually very much insulted by. But, I mean, really, this match was kind of determined from the start, in my opinion, when Terrakion missed that Stone Edge on Talonflame, and no, I did not say that wrong. I actually really hate that Pokemon. That being said, it's on one of my favorite teams of all time, but I'm just going to ignore that fact. And Talonflame really just did absolute work for Fufu this game. I mean, he did solid damage. I mean, did it even get a KO? I don't necessarily think it did, but it just did huge, huge damage to Mono's team, which put him on the back foot and really was just unable to recover for the rest of the game. So, I mean, it sucks that Mono got hacked like that, but, I mean, he is a great player, and he always brings some very ingenious sets, so I'm looking forward to see how he bounces back, and I know that this won't get to his head. So, I mean, he's at number 3, but I can definitely see him jumping into the first or second spot if one of the two teams slip up next week. I'm looking forward to see how he bounces back, and I know that this won't get to his head. So, I mean, he's at number 3, but I can definitely see him jumping into the first or second spot if one of the two teams slip up next week.
Yeah, I definitely agree about that. I think that if anyone could bounce back after a tough loss, it is probably Mono, because my boner for him is continuously growing. So I'm just gonna keep saying more good things about him. You know what? Forget number 1 and 2. Mono is number 1 in my heart. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so number 2 we have.
Hey, I thought that was me.
Yeah, no, it is you. I'm just kidding. Don't worry. I could never replace you. I mean, sometimes I'll just like to see you get a little jealous, but I could never really replace you in my heart.
Hey, just ask me to tell you how I feel. You don't need to make me jealous, because that hurts me too, alright?
I don't know.
Alright, just ask me to send you one of my patented poems, and then it'll all be good. I'll take you out to dinner, and we can whisper sweet nothings after a bottle of wine.
That sounds nice. That sounds very nice. I think we should do that after these rankings are over.
Oh, geez, we need to just skip 1 and 2 then completely. I mean, yeah, sure, 1 Maryland Torterrapins, and 2 Newcastle United. All right, then.
Unfortunately, my lovely and serenading partner did just spoil the last 2 places on the power rankings here, but I guess we do have to justify those really quickly. So number 2, I put Fufu and the Newcastle United. He has a great team, no doubt about it, and only has 9 Pokemon instead of 11, which is my biggest flaw with it, or my biggest qualm with it. But I think that there's still great Pokemon on there. He definitely seemed to have Mono's number in the prediction game, which, like I said before, is difficult because Mono just plays so well. But to show that he could adapt to someone's playstyle that well is definitely impressive and very scary for everybody else in the league. And yeah, even though he did get lucky, he played just so well that it's hard to put him anywhere lower than number 2, because he's still 2-0 and he still has a great team. So there's not much I could really say there.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I say that the stone miss determined the game, which I still maintain that it did. I mean, I want to give him huge credit for Reflect type Starmie and Taunt Mega Aggron, which, I mean, while the stone miss put him in a great position, those type of plays and that type of prep just really solidified the game for him. So, I mean, Fufu is an incredible battler that deserves this number 2 spot. I mean, I would have liked to have seen how the battle would have played out without the stone miss. I mean, it might have ended up the same way. I mean, not necessarily with the same score, but in the same way with Fufu coming out on top. But you know what? I kind of want to see a battle between Fufu and Mono where just no hacks happens at all, and you just have 2 of draft style's best, just going at it. So I'm intrigued to see if they have a matchup later on this season. So good luck, you two. I hope it's something awesome. Draft style's best, just going at it. So I'm intrigued to see if they have a matchup later on this season. So good luck, you two. I hope it's something awesome.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because even in that game, like, even though Fufu did whip out those awesome sets and seemed to have the prediction game on point, it could have, been a completely different game had that Stone Edge hit. So yeah, definitely would have been interesting to see, and hopefully we do get to see that later on throughout the season. So for number one, I believe we unanimously have the Maryland Tour Terrapins, coached by Under the Radar. Now, although his win was Haxie, it was a 4-0. So his differential is, I believe, +7, which is very solid after 2 games. And his team is, like Sticks and I both said, one of the best, drafts, if not, the best draft we've seen in a while. I mean, for me, I know it's the best rain draft I've ever seen. So I am not a fan of rain drafts personally. And the fact that I think his draft is so amazing, it just is a testament to how good I really think it is. So yeah, his team is awesome. I think he played fine this week. It was just like, he really hacked his opponent. Hacks is hacks. It happens. What are you going to do? But he is still a 2-0, +7 differential team with an incredibly scary roster. So he's definitely going to be tough to beat. And right now he's in a good position to, potentially make the playoffs. I know it's early, but being, 2-0 with a +7 differential is a great start.
Yeah, forget playoffs. I mean, this guy's going to be someone that's competing for a championship. And I mean, I kind of wish I could actually move him down the power rankings with the justification too broke, please nerf. But I mean, unfortunately, I can't, because that wouldn't even make sense. But I mean, then again, when does half the stuff I do make sense? And that wouldn't be the first time I did something completely random. But I mean, once again, UTR just has an absurdly good team, like a team that could actually ladder on the OU ladder and do really, really well. So I mean, honestly, like, forget rain draft. This is one of the best drafts, period, I have ever seen, and I am definitely looking forward to how he's able to, alter his team as other coaches are able to prep for him and learn his style. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to. And yes, he did hack his opponent this week, but I mean, we can never know how much it ultimately mattered coming down to the end. And a 4-0 is still a 4-0. So, I mean, coming away with 2-0 and +7, I mean, any coach in the world would take that, except for maybe Maddie, because he'd be like, nah, I can get an 8-0 and then go 0-2. But, I mean, hey, that's just because he's bad at Pokemon. But anyway, yeah, that's why Maryland is number one right now in my power rankings, and is actually the number one team in my heart. Don't worry, Maddie. You still have that spot occupied for people. Can get an 8-0 and then go 0-2, but I mean, hey, that's just because he's bad at Pokemon. But anyway, yeah, that's why Maryland is number one right now in my power rankings, and is actually the number one team in my heart. Don't worry, Maddie. You still have that spot occupied for people.
Thank you. I'm honored to hear you say that, and I agree with everything you said about his team. I mean, like, if he could really get the hang of his team and get used to every single Pokemon on it, then how are you stopping that team? I mean, I would like to see it. Right now, yes, maybe he would have lost this game without the hacks, who knows, but like I said, if he can continue to improve with this team, then he'll truly be a nearly unstoppable force, because that team is just incredible. So unless people end up hacking them themselves, or he just doesn't end up really catching on to his team as quickly as the others, then I definitely see him being a top threat throughout most of the season. So only time will tell, though. And one thing that's pretty interesting is that after week 2, there are only 2 2-0 teams. So anything can happen in the PPL this season, and that is going to be exciting to see. So with that, I guess we will be closing out the week 2 power rankings. So definitely excited to see the upcoming matches. Everything is really tense, and it's confusing. It's all up in the air, and that's what makes these types of leagues fun. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. Definitely let us know what you think in the comments and whatnot. Both Sticks and I enjoy making and recording together, so this was definitely very enjoyable for us as well. And any closing words, Sticks?
Just go ahead and go put on your pretty red dress and nice heels, and I'm going to take you out to dinner and wine and dine that ass like there's no tomorrow. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And this is Styx and Maddie signing out.
All right.
See you guys.
Later.